Welcome back, everyone, to the home of all things ballroom dance. And today's tender topic is studio drama and distress in a ballroom dance studio. So first and foremost, verbal abuse. I've seen it in almost every studio. And I do feel this is probably a benefit of taking in a chain studio, because I feel like, from what I've heard, it's a little less common there because they have such tight controls. There are major downsides of taking in a chain studio too, mainly the skill level that you're going to be able to achieve, but there are pros, and in my opinion, that's one of them, okay? I feel so strongly that this destroys a studio environment, guys. And honestly, it does happen in most industries. So, personal story for you. When I was younger and I was an amateur dancer, I had a job, a non-dancing job, where my boss was a tyrant, and she would scream at people. If you can't do your blah, 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 blah job, I'm going to find someone who can. She never screamed at me, but I have to tell you, I just walked around there like a little puppy with my tail between my legs, praying to be invisible. That is not an environment, folks, where your dancing is going to flourish, okay? And if you happen to see anything shady in your studio, please bring it to the attention of the owner of that ballroom dance studio. The owner probably didn't get there by being abusive. It's more likely that person is even keeled, or they wouldn't have been able to open a studio. But you know what? If that's the tyrant, time to leave. If it's not, talk to them in private. I am positive they will retain your confidentiality because they want you to stay at that studio. And I myself, when I owned the largest ballroom dance studio in the country, I had a couple people like this that worked in my studio, and I kindly didn't let them hit the door on their butt when I kicked them out. So just, it's intolerable, okay, guys? And this can take place in a number of different ways, okay? So I have another personal experience story to share with you. I had a beautiful person inside and out who was my front desk bookkeeper. And she was so timid in her communication style. And she would say, Sunny, gosh, so-and-so is just kind of aggressive in the way that they ask for things. And I feel they're a little critical. And because she was so gentle in how she phrased it, I just thought, oh, well, she's a sweet gal. She's probably just sensitive. And then one day I'm sitting in my office, which is like literally 300 feet away from the front desk, totally separate door. I hear what I think is a crazy person screaming obscenities at my front desk person. And I, as the owner, I'm not going to leave them up there unprotected. I just went tearing up there to figure out, kick out this cray-cray person. And it was the person she had told me about, who was a pro in my studio, screaming his lungs out at her, massive verbal abuse, because he was mad about some petty thing. To this day, I can't believe it. I would not treat my dog like that. And so, these things don't just happen, in front of students. No one was in the studio. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you're here. And I'm like, well, thank heavens you didn't know I was here so I could see the real you. So these things unfortunately do happen. Some pros can have hot tempers, and that will manifest itself in a number of ways, okay? Sometimes this also rears its ugly head between partnerships, whether they are pro or amateur. And I've seen this everywhere as well. I have seen pro partners treat each other like dirt And I see it even worse in the amateur world, because you know what? You're probably not going to make it to that pro level if you're abusive to your partners. No one's going to dance with you. So I think I can only think of one pro couple that fought like cats and dogs, other than a personal issues where it was a romantic thing involved and an affair and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, in terms of just practicing and companionship, respecting your partner, I have seen this happen more often with amateurs. And there was a studio, fortunately it went under in Seattle, called Danceport International. Wonderful studio. Shout out to Bob and Monique Haruda. If you're in Seattle, you might just like, oh, they're just dance teachers. Well, they used to own an amazing studio. Unfortunately, it went under, but anyway, something I really respected there when I went there as an amateur, they brought in many visiting coaches, was the only printed sign I recall ever seeing on their wall was basically like, if you fight with your partner, you will be invited to leave. So don't do it, whether you're a pro or an amateur. Excellent studio policy. And I strongly suspect, although it's not in writing on the wall, that any owner is going to enforce something like that, because we do not need that cancer in our environment. Ballroom dance is a joyful event, not an abusive one. And if it is, get out. Okay, next. I've heard students or pros, more often the pros, frankly, complain behind the student's back. And for Pete's sake, professionals, if you do not respect your partner, your amateur partner, keep your trap shut. And if you are so overwhelmed by your feelings that you can't keep your mouth shut, please fire them, so to speak, gently as a student, and encourage them to go to someone who will appreciate them and treat them with the customer service they deserve. Now, this is rare, guys, but I have seen it, and I've seen it more than once. Again, it is uncommon, but it does happen, and dislike to the nth degree. I even had a pro, he called one of his amateur partners. I didn't see anything wrong with her. It was like, she is, and he used a foul word that starts with the letter B. I would never repeat that. And he would say this all the time. I hate leaving her. She's like driving a tank, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what, dude? If she's like driving a tank, you suck as a teacher. There's a reason for that. And so pros, if you're talking smack about your student, trust you me, it just reflects poorly on you. And so when also, guys, folks, if I hear unsolicited gossip in any way that's kind of trash talk about any dancer there, pro, amateur, social dancer, parent, I don't care. I cannot help but wonder what the heck you're saying about me behind my back. And it is going to decrease everyone's respect for you and trust for you, whether you're an amateur or pro. So just don't do it. Okay. Overall, in my experience, particularly, it's the amateurs who tend to be mean to their partners. The vast majority of pros do not talk smack about their students, though I do see a lot of fighting between the pros, and I have shared this in a previous video. I've even seen come down to a threat of calling the police and touching, screaming, face yelling, threatening to leave if you don't fire this person. Fist fight darn near broke out. I have seen it all, folks. It's not my first rodeo. I've been in this industry a long time, long before it became popularized on Dancing with the Stars. Personally, interestingly, I have never seen fights between co-owners of the studio. Those folks do tend to be on the same team. They have a common goal. They get along well, or they wouldn't have made it as business partners, guys. So I do like that. And usually it is, I can't think of a single example where I've personally seen the owners involved in any sort of trash talk like that. Even when I would fire someone for absolutely horrid reasons that probably was apparent to the public, I never talked about it in public. I'm there to provide a joyful, positive environment, and that's my job, and that's your teacher's job, and that's your job as the amateur student to provide that joyful, positive, supportive environment for all. Fortunately, the vast majority of ballroom dancers are like that. I'm just sharing with you in case you've encountered a challenging situation that, it does happen. These are all human beings in the end. And in that case, you're not the only one, and you do have some recourse. And I would strongly encourage you to seek out a private conversation with that studio owner and ask for their confidentiality and not revealing your identity to the parties involved. And I can't imagine that they would betray you in that. They're going to appreciate your honesty. Okay, guys? They are business owners and they are lovers of dance, and they want to do everything they can to propel the joy in their community. Okay, so anyway, I hope that has been interesting. Hey, if you've seen some sort of verbal abuse, as I have seen, and I've seen it in lessons too, folks, and in that case, amateurs, leave that teacher, because every time I've seen it, that teacher has just been outgrown by the student and they're stressed out. And then they take it out on the students. So if your pro screaming at you, I'm not talking about a one-off, like we're stressed out, we got a comp coming up. But I mean, if they are reliably berating you in all of your privates, time to move on. There's someone else out there that's going to be better for you. Even if they're not as good of a dancer, you're going to improve more with someone that just treats you with kindness or general modicum of human respect. Okay, friends, I've gone way beyond that 10-minute mark. I apologize. If you have seen or personally experienced some verbal abuse in some form in your studio, hey, I want to hear in the comments below. Please do not share individuals' names or I will delete the comment. I haven't deleted comments so far, but I don't want to out anyone, virtue shame anyone. But if we're all honest about the things we've experienced and seen, it can help people that might be victims of this stuff feel less isolated and alone, okay? So have a gorgeous, beautiful, joyful dancing week. Hey, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And if you're interested in hearing more about ballroom dance culture from the perspective of a very experienced professional ballroom dancer, hey, give me a shout out, subscribe to my channel. Cannot wait to see you guys. Have an awesome day. Bye.